Alright guys, today I'm going to be talking about my favorite team in the Denver Broncos, and they lost in the AFC Championship this past year, but I feel like they would have won if not forced to start Jarrett Stidham due to Bo Nix's injury that happened in the divisional against the Bills. And they were the number one seed, and although a lot of analysts and fans were calling the Broncos frauds, they still beat the Bills in the divisional. Of course, like I mentioned before, they did fall to the Patriots in the championship game. Now, I think that a lot of people wanted to see the Broncos make a lot of big moves this offseason to help them get over, the hump. And it's not like they've been stuck at this hump for a couple years like the Bills have, where they've kept losing and losing in the playoffs. But just to get over the hump of, coming off an AFC championship loss, they want to see the Broncos maybe do a little bit more. Now, I think that the additions of Jalen Waddle was all they really needed to do. And honestly, I really like the fact that they're probably just going to continue to grow in house through the players they already have. Looking at the first of the Broncos offseason moves, and really the only big acquisition they made, they swapped a couple other picks along with their first rounder with the Dolphins in return for Jalen Waddle. And Waddle is a star receiver, and although was normally the receiver two with Miami, I think he should adjust just fine to being the one in Denver, especially since they have Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Troy Franklin to spread out the targets. But of course, Waddle is going to give the Broncos a great receiving threat when they haven't had a true superstar wide receiver in some time. And I am a big Cortland Sutton fan. I could actually see him being more of a 1B than a wide receiver 2 with Waddle. But Waddle is a little younger, and he's obviously going to bring quite a bit of spark to the Broncos offense. Sutton will still be a great player to have for the red zone. He's easily a top 10 red zone receiver in the league. And if you disagree, I think you should agree that he is top 15. But looking at the rest of the Broncos' moves, this is the only real big time one they made. So why do I think they're going to be able to make the next step? And like I kind of mentioned before, when looking back at the Broncos team last year, they were one injury away from a Super Bowl appearance. And of course, you can't change this and you have to move forward, but clearly big changes weren't needed, I don't think. And acquiring a true wide receiver one was the best move that they could have made, and you can't really blame them for moving that pick, as four wide receivers had been taken before where they would have picked in the first round. And when you look at that, you also have to consider the fact that a lot of the players are going to grow, and that's why I think that it was good of them not to make too many moves. But looking at the ones they did make, at least internally, they re-signed J.K. Dobbins along with Jaleel McLaughlin, who's been a solid rotational back for the Broncos. Of course, Dobbins had a stellar 10 games until injury took him off the field, and although he's been injury prone his whole career, and this was a big chance for him to prove he can stay on the field, although he didn't. I still like the move bringing him back, and I think it's kind of gutsy from the Broncos, but I'm a big fan of it personally, and especially because second year back RJ Harvey might get utilized a little more to help break up J.K. Dobbins' snaps. On offense, the Broncos also brought Lil Jordan Humphrey back after losing him to the Giants for part of last year before signing him back off of their practice squad, and he is a great receiver to have just as a depth guy, and especially on run plays, he's a great blocking receiver, and he's willing to get down and gritty more. If you guys are liking the video so far, and even if you're not, please just comment your thoughts down below. And, if you agree or disagree with what I'm saying, I want to hear any of your thoughts. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of the video. When we move to looking at the defensive side of the ball, the Broncos retain Alex Singleton and Justin Strad, who have both been very solid for them. And they did, of course, lose John Franklin Myers, who has been solid on the defensive line and has been great in the run game, especially. But the Broncos did draft defensive tackle Tyler Alniedem with their first pick of the draft at 66. They also did lose PJ Locke, who's somewhat come into his own, but they did draft safety Miles Scott in the 7th, which I really doubt that he turns into much, but it is still, good to note that they drafted the position. But of course, they do have Talanoa Hufanga and Brennan Jones as safety to start, and maybe they'll try to put Jade Barron into a rotational role that Locke was kind of in. And Barron did play all around the secondary in college, which does, of course, give me some hope there that they could do that. When I look back at the Broncos offseason, especially as a Broncos fan, I'm honestly not disappointed at all. I'm actually really excited for what they did just because they didn't try to do too much. I'm excited about the Waddle move, and I think the rest of the team should continue to come into form. Now, of course, Bo Nix will be coming off of injury, and I would expect a slightly slow start, but I think he should still continue to develop into being a great quarterback like we've seen so far. And the offensive line is starting to age with Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey, but I still think that they should be solid through this year and probably won't have to worry about that quite yet. Now, the defense should still be elite. I really wouldn't see why they would fall off. Obviously, John Franklin Myers is a bit of a loss as he was great in the run game, but maybe Jade Barron, at least in the secondary, should continue to develop, and hopefully will have a bigger role this year and be able to do more, especially if PJ Locke out of the roster. That might give him a couple more rotational snaps there. And losing John Franklin Myers did suck, but they still have DJ Jones, and they did draft a defensive tackle there at the top of the third round. So I hope you guys did all enjoy this video, and go ahead and comment any of your thoughts down below, and consider liking the video and coming back for more. Thank you all for watching.